Hello dear all. In this video lecture, we are going to discuss a novel written by Thomas Hardy titled as Mayor of Casterbridge. Now, it is advisable for all of you to be ready with a copy and a pen so that you may note down all the important points that I am going to tell you. So let's start with the publication of the novel. The novel was first published in 1886 and it is one of the Wessex novels written by Hardy. Now, when we are talking about this term Wessex novels, we have to keep it in mind that all of the Hardy's fictions were generally located around a fictional rural England, and in this novel also he talks about the rural England and the events surround a place called Casterbridge, and the chief protagonist is the mayor of the place called Casterbridge. Now, these Wessex novels are generally, Wessex is generally a place which Hardy imagined. It has got some original names also from places in England, whereas some of its places are imaginative and fictional names are given by Hardy. And in all of his novels, this is the general setting about the Wessex town that he plays and portrays. Now, in this novel, which was also subtitled as Mayor of Casterbridge, The Life and Death of a Man of Character. Now, it is one of the finest masterpieces of Hardy, and when Hardy says the life and death of a man of character, we must assume that the protagonist is a man who is very strong in his character. But when you will look into the chief protagonist, that is Michael Henchard, you will find that he has got several flaws in his character. And at points you will start disliking the man a lot. So how can such a man, be termed as a man of character? So the most important thing is that he is a man of character. Why? Because he has the capacity and capability to endure whatever situation comes in his life. So whatever fate offers you, if you are ready to fight with that, if you are ready to be standing in front of it and able to confront it, then you are a man of character. So it is about the life and death, means about the whole life process of a man who is named Michael Henchard, and he is submissive to fate, but he fights against whatever fate offers him. Now, we have to also keep it in mind that in Hardy's novel, always fate is capital. F is capital in his novels. So, generally his protagonists are victim of fate, and how fate is very foul and fate plays ill games or throws out some hurdles in your life, some not. Generally, his protagonists face and suffer a lot throughout their lives, and then also if they have the will and determination to stand on their feet and work against the current of fate, then obviously the man is a successful man, and that's why the Mayor of Casterbridge is also subtitled as Life and Death of a Man of Character. Now we move on to the story of the novel. The novel opens up with a man who is the chief protagonist, Michael Henchard, who is at that time of 21 years of age, and he has a wife named Susan Henchard and a little daughter named Elizabeth Jane. And the man, after drinking a lot because under the effect of alcoholism, in a total numbness of thoughts, somehow sells away his wife Susan and his daughter to a sailor named Richard Newson for just 5 guineas. Now, this is the setting back of the novel. Actually, this gives the viewer a kind of setback. How can a person sell away his own wife and child? But It is done in the whim of alcoholism, and the next day, when Henchard wakes up and he is sober now and he realizes what he has done, he goes on hunting for his wife, but he is unable to find them anywhere, and they are gone. They are gone with Richard Newson, because Susan thinks that it has been legally acclaimed that Henchard has sold her to this man Richard, and they live with the man for approx 18 years. And after the man goes missing in his sailing expedition, Susan returns to find Michael Henchard, because now she has no means to support her and her girl child, who has now grown into a young lady. And when they return and try to find out Michael Henchard, they see that he has now become the mayor of Casterbridge. And he has become a very sober man, because after Susan had gone and he has sold away her, Henchard was very guilty about the fact, and he had taken an oath that he would not drink for 21 years from that time. So Henchard has become a very prosperous and successful man. He has become a mayor of Casterbridge, and he is at that time engaged to a lady called Lucetta Templeman. Now, when Susan approaches and Henchard sees that his wife is back, he wants to marry her. But if they will bring it out to the world that how he had sold away his wife, and if the thing will be known by their daughter, how she will feel, keeping all these things in view, they try to create such a situation where Henchard proposes Susan once again, and they decide to remarry. Because of this, Lucetta Templeman, who had been engaged to Michael Henchard and who had taken care of him a lot when he was ill, the engagement between them is broken. And Susan and Michael Henchard remarry actually, and Elizabeth Jane is loved by Michael Henchard a lot, because he thinks her to be his daughter, the long lost daughter. And Elizabeth Jane somehow develops a very lovable instinct for a man called Donald Farfrae. And this Farfrae is a Scottish man, he's from Scotland, and Michael Henchard has hired him in his fields to take care of them, because he is a very talented man. And because of that, but when Henchard sees that Farfrae and Elizabeth Jane are getting attracted towards one another, he spuns Farfrae away. And then Farfrae and Lucetta get engaged to one another, because Lucetta has also been discarded by Michael Henchard. But circumstances become very foul, and somehow Lucetta's and Michael's love letters are come to disclosure, and because of that Lucetta becomes very ill. And in the meanwhile, after Susan's death, Susan had written a letter telling Michael Henchard that Elizabeth Jane was not their daughter, actually not his daughter, because their daughter had died when she was very young, and Susan had given birth to another girl child by Richard Newson. So Elizabeth Jane, the second Elizabeth Jane, was the daughter of Richard Newson. And when he comes to find out, Michael Henchard comes to find out that Elizabeth Jane is not his daughter, his own daughter, he becomes very cold towards her. Again, this shows the flaw of Henchard's character. And Lucetta is also somehow, because of the cold behavior of Elizabeth Jane comes in contact, because of the cold behavior of Michael Henchard with Elizabeth Jane becomes close towards Lucetta. And now when the Lucetta and Michael Henchard's love letters are revealed, Lucetta becomes very ill and dies. So somehow or the other, finally everything is getting sorted, and Donald Farfrae and Elizabeth Jane finally decide to marry. In the meanwhile, Michael Henchard's all the estates and properties have also suffered a lot, and because of his rash decisions, his wealth is lost. He is becoming bankrupt, and Farfrae on the other hand has become very rich. And because of all these affairs going all around, somehow or the other, finally um, Elizabeth Jane and Farfaret decide to marry. Michael Henchard comes, approaches them, asks for forgiveness, but at that time, Elizabeth Jane is very cold towards Henchard and spurns him away. So Henchard goes to some desolate rural area and lives alone, and he is very dejected at the time of his later days and somehow dies there. And later on, Elizabeth Jane realizes that she has been very cold to Michael Henchard, and she has not behaved appropriately with him. So Farfaret and Elizabeth Jane try to find Michael Henchard, and when they reach where finally he is, they find him dead, in desolate and dejected in his last days. And they also discover a will of Michael Henchard where he has written that he must not be remembered hereafter. So this is the whole life of Michael Henchard, which has been a life of total turmoil, which has been a life when fate has been very ill towards him, when he has not seen much of happiness in his life. At first, he gives away his wife, and for 21 years he lives a desolate life. And finally, when he is going to marry someone, then the wife returns, and later he discovers that his own biological girl is also own biological child is also dead. So he turns cold towards Elizabeth Jane. And in these all these way, every time fate has been very cruel to him, and fate is capital in this novel too. But what determines the character of Henchard is that he has been determinant till the end. He has been fighting towards all the odds that life offered to him, and that is why he is a man of character. So this was all about this novel, and I am sure you must have understood about the basic plot and the basic highlights of the novel. If you have been benefited by this video, then don't forget to like, share, comment on this video. Thank you.